morning, everyone. I am Katalin Solymosi, the co-chair of the Danube region thematic mission of the Academia Europaea Budapest Knowledge Hub, and I will be moderating the event today. This webinar is centered around the Interreg Danube region program. Our aim is to increase awareness about this grant application, as its next submission deadline is on the 3rd of April. The first two speeches will explain the basic features of this program and provide practical advice on successful proposal writing. In the second part of the event, we present as an example the successfully finished Tidy Up Interreg project and its major scientific outcomes related to microplastic pollution in the Danube River Basin. Then at the end of the speeches, we'll have a Q&A session. Please turn off your cameras and mute yourself during the speeches and reserve your questions for the Q&A session. Alternatively, you can also add some of your questions in the chat during the presentations. The event is being recorded and the video will be later available and published on the website of the YouTube channel of the Hungarian Academy of Sciences. We hope that it will be successful and it will help to improve collaboration and networking among the countries and researchers of the Danube region, in line with one of the major aims of the Academia Europaea Budapest Knowledge Hub. With these few introductory words, I would like to give the floor to our first speaker, Gustav Csomor, who works as Senior Project Officer at the Danube Region Program Managing Authority Joint Secretariat. We are really grateful to you for being with us today and for the introductory presentation about the Interreg Danube Region Program. Gustav, the floor is yours.
Good morning to everyone, and I would also welcome all interested participants in the name of the Danube Region Program. As it was introduced, I'm going to present the main features of the program, as well as some words on the ongoing second call with the appropriate deadline and features. Very briefly, as an introductory, the Interreg is a, let's say, a collection of many different several programs financed from EU funding, and it relates to the so-called territorial European territorial cooperation programs, which has many different, not many, but different features. One strand is dealing with cross-border cooperation, focusing on cross-border areas of the many different countries in the EU and the neighboring countries. Then there are those programs focusing on broader territories, so-called transnational programs. And out of these, one of the program is the Danube Region Program. And then there is also a European level networking program, which is called Interreg Europe. As it was mentioned in my presentation, I will focus on the program I'm working in, which is the Danube Region Program. And the program itself is focusing on the more or less the Danube River Basin countries, and includes 14 different countries, as you can see on the map here. The program is supporting joint territorial cooperation projects, and in this terminology, each word has important meaning. Territorial is important to understand that the basis of all projects are the certain broad territory within the program area, where a certain challenge is to be tackled, a certain problem which would need joint cooperation of relevant actors from those countries in the area in order to try to provide some sort of solution for that specific problem or challenge. So the starting point of each project shall always be that specific territorial challenge, considering the territory itself, as well as, of course, the common challenge, and also to make sure that the project or the cooperation has added value in comparison to what anyway in one or the other country actors would be able to solve. In this framework, the program is supporting, on the one hand, development of institutional capacities, knowledge transfer in between the different actors and different territories of the target area. It's also important that the projects are expected to influence or have some impact on the policy and decision-making level as much as possible. And for the targeted problems, of course, the project partners can jointly elaborate or develop certain specific solutions that hopefully can improve the situation or tackle the problem. What actually the transnational terminology means. On the one hand, the project shall have transnational dimension, meaning that the project topic, the specific challenge or problem that it intends to address, as well as the activities that the project is carrying out, is targeting a sufficiently broad territory within the Danube region. And also the thematic characteristic and relevance of the project has this proper territorial dimension. And of course, regarding the activities and project outputs, the project products, it's expected that projects shall have some impact on this broader territorial level, so not only on local scale in different countries. Excuse me. Considering the broad space of the Danube region, which is, as I mentioned, it relates to 14 countries, these partnerships and projects shall address a reasonably good and big part of it. So it is not expected to be limited to 3-4 countries. That's how project partnerships and projects are to be planned and developed. It's also not to be misunderstood and as cross-border programs. So here, transnational projects and the program itself is not addressing cross-border issues, rather an issue of a sufficiently broad area. Be it, as just an example, the Danube River itself, when we talk about, I don't know, water management, or a certain ecological corridor, like, I don't know, the Carpathian mountain ranges. And then another important aspect is that bringing together different partners from different countries who would, under the same umbrella, work on their own issues in relation to a certain topic, that's not yet a transnational project, and that's not really fitting the program. So again, the program is supposed to finance projects which can have activities in connection to policy improvement, institutional capacities through certain strategy development or action plans, establishing certain networks, carrying out certain trainings. Then to tackle the specific program and challenge, certain tools, methods, services can be developed as specific solutions. And still within the project, these are then expected to be tested through pilot activities and to ensure and validate that these then would function in reality and on a longer run to tackle the specific problem. And then there are general additional activities like communication, dissemination, potentially small-scale investments can also be part if that has transnational relevance. but in general, investment is not in the scope of the program. And in a certain project, of course, the proper mixture of these different kind of activities are expected. So we don't expect a project that is developing a strategy and that's all, or which is focusing on developing an innovative tool, but nothing more. What the program is not financing is that a specific focus on research in itself. Of course, research activities can be part of a project, but then it's expected that what has been done, then that is also applied on operational or on strategic level by the key actors. And this is the same valid for developing solutions. It's not enough to develop something innovative and new, but within the project, it shall also be ensured that then this is used on the field and on the ground by the specific users. And as I already mentioned, the program is not financing infrastructure investments mainly, just on a reasonable level. From thematical point of view, the program is divided to 4 different priorities, and within these priorities, there are certain specific objectives, some a bit more in detail. The first priority, we can say it's focusing on innovation. With 2 different specific objectives. One is developing and enhancing research and innovation capacities, as well as uptake of advanced technologies. And then there is another objective that is focusing on skill development for smart specialization or industrial transition entrepreneurship. The problem now is that in the recent call, in the second ongoing call, this whole priority is closed. So unfortunately, in connection to these specific objectives, it's not possible to submit proposals. The priority 2 has environmental focus. The first specific objective within refers to or is focusing on promotion of renewable energy in the transport as well as in the energy sector and heating cooling system. Unfortunately, this is another specific object which is closed in the second call, but then all the others which I'm just about to present all are open and accessible for the second call. Which among those, the next objective is focusing on climate change adaptation. So the adaptation is important, not climate change mitigation, but adaptation, as well as disaster management on transnational level in connection to environmental risks. Still within this priority, another 2 specific objectives are one is dealing with transnational water and sediment management within the Danube River Basin, while the other one is focusing on transnational ecological corridors and ecoregions of the Danube region, and within those to promote protecting and reserving on biodiversity. Priority 3 has a social focus with 3 different objectives. One is dealing with accessible and inclusive, effective labor markets. Another one is dealing with quality services in education, training, and lifelong learning. But again, with the specific scope on accessibility and inclusiveness. While the third objective is intent to enhance the role of culture and sustainable tourism in economic development, social inclusion, and social innovation. Here, what is important, very often applicants pick the word tourism and then submit whatever idea they have in relation to tourism projects. The important aspect here is the cultural natural heritage behind, as well as the economic development aspect in addressing also social issues, social inclusion, and social innovation. So these are also important parts. These shall also be important parts of the project. The last priority is about governance issues, and it intends to increase institutional capacities for territorial and macro-regional governance. Due to the limited time, I cannot go more into details, but of course on the program website you can find much more concrete details, what in one or the other specific objective, what kind of topics and what activities can be financed. What is also important to understand that regarding the projects, it's expected that the outputs and results ensure and demonstrate durability. So if a certain strategy is to be developed for the key target groups, then the project itself already has to prove that actually that strategy will be implemented on a longer run, or a certain tool, method, solution is already applied by the key stakeholders and target groups. And of course, looking beyond the project area and the project partnership, the relevant project outputs are also expected to be transferred to other areas within the Danube region or even beyond. This, of course, needs a long-term strategic perspective and then involvement key stakeholders from the very beginning. And it's also important that then this can also ensure a certain level of ownership regarding these stakeholders. And as I mentioned, follow-up activities are also expected to reach out to the relevant policy level or to find sufficient funding beyond the project. Who can be project partner in Danube region projects? So the financing, those partners having budget in a project shall come from the region. So entities outside of the Danube region are not eligible. And by characteristics, there can be, of course, public bodies or bodies covered by public law or such bodies governed by private law, including also enterprises. But here I have to mention that private enterprises cannot be lead partners. I will later on touch the lead partner issue. And of course, relevant international organizations can also be involved in the partnerships. What is also important when a partnership is designed, that as I mentioned, the territorial aspect of a project is the key basis. And of course, then it's expected if a project has a key territorial target area, then partners are involved from all those countries of the target area, including non-EU countries. As you see, the Danube region, it has 5 non-EU partner states as well. And in fact, that's also a, let's say, requirement from the program side to involve partners from these countries as well. Regarding the size of the partnership, there is no specific limit, but of course, if it's too small, then it might have very limited potential impact. On the other hand, if it's too big, then it might have a risk on management. Regarding the setup and involvement of the different actors, of course, it is expected to have sufficient expertise in relation to the topic. as the appropriate territorial and thematic competencies of these partners. And since we expect that the project also contribute to the policy level, of course, then relevant actors are expected to be involved from that level as well. But at the same time, these broad partnerships are expected to be balanced. So it's not expected that there are several partners from a certain country, while from the other 5-6 countries, only one is involved. But that relates also to the type of partners involved. The lead partner is, so the program and within those, the projects are run along the so-called lead partner principle, which means that one partner out of the partnership will be the contracting party that will be contracted by your program, and that will be responsible for the overall coordination of the project. This lead partner can come from any Danube region country, unfortunately, except for Ukraine, at least in this call, due to the unfortunate situations in that partner country. Some few words about the associated strategic partners, which are that kind of entities in a project which might not need to be involved on a daily implementation, but still can have a relevant contribution as, for example, a policy actor, a certain ministry can be involved, and the financing partners can cover their travel and accommodation cost and to try to ensure their closer involvement in the project. Regarding the budget and the financing, the program is providing a so-called Interreg funds, which means that this is available for all partners from all countries, be it EU or non-EU member state. The overall program budget is a bit more than 224 million euro, and the EU contribution intensity is 80%. So 80% of a project budget can be provided or is provided by the program. Regarding the second call, the indicative allocation is a bit more than 55 million euro. The usual project size from budgetary point of view is in between 1 and 3 million euro, but there is no specific limit on this. And what is also important to keep in mind that the implementation goes so that the project start the implementation, carry out their planned activities, and on a periodic basis, based on the costs related to the carried out activities, the program, based on the reports and the proof of what has been done and the cost spent, the 80% of the cost is reimbursed to the lead partner, and then the lead partner is transferring the respective part to the project partners, which means that partners have to have sufficient cash flow to pre-finance their activities, because that takes time until actually the program funding reach the projects and the project partners. And there is no advance payment. Very briefly, what to consider when applying. As I mentioned, make sure that the project has a clear transnational dimension and potential impact, as well as a territorial relevance in the Danube region and within those challenges that are identified and are supposed to be addressed by the program. Make a sufficiently broad and good and strong and balanced partnership. Create a coherent intervention logic starting from the project challenge throughout this defined project objectives, then the properly linked activities and outputs and the result. Make sure that these outputs can be durable and transferable. And since the program area is basically matching with the territory of the Danube strategy, one expectation or requirement from the projects also to have sufficient contribution to a certain priority area or objective of the Danube strategy. Briefly about the second call, as it was mentioned, the call is open since beginning of November, and the submission deadline is the 3rd of April. Applications are to be submitted through the so-called Danube Region Program GEMS. It's an online electronic monitoring system. Project duration is expected to be 3 years, and the estimated project start is sometime next year, later spring. Hopefully that's realistic. Regarding the application, you can find many resources on the program website. Here I also listed some links to the call itself, but you can also find thematic recordings of thematic webinars along in connection to each specific objective, the applicant's package itself. The program provides a matchmaking platform tool for those who would like to search for partners, and it's a very useful platform from this point of view. Each program country has a national contact point, which can provide information to the applicants relevant within their countries. Of course, the Joint Secretary is also there to provide sufficient information if needed, and one bilateral consultation. And from thematic point of view, I can also recommend to get in contact with the priority or the area coordinator of the relevant topic within the Danube strategy. With this, I get to the end of my presentation, and hopefully I could raise your interest in our program, and I wish you a successful project development and application in case you consider it relevant. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your highly informative and insightful speech, Gustav. I also learned a lot about these really interesting and various possibilities the Danube Region Program and this Interreg program is offering to the scientific community or to the entire community and researchers and different organizations in the Danube region. Now I would like to give the floor to Fruzsina Kardos from Ex Ante Consulting Limited, who will share with us her great experience with Interreg project and grant writing. I really do hope that her practical type of advice and tips will greatly help those thinking about the preparation of an application this year. Fruzsina, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Katalin. I will try to extend Gustav's presentation with some of the practicalities and some of the challenges that we have encountered throughout the development of our transnational projects. So let me jump into my presentation. Okay, so our experiences on writing a successful Interreg, especially Interreg Danube project. First, as Gustav has described, there is always the detailed program that you can reach on the website of the program, and you must find the matching program call and within the objectives that your project idea you can match to. And within the TIDIA project that Attila will introduce and you will talk about later, we have a continuation project. It's called Aquatic Plastic that has been submitted to the first call of this programming period, also within the Danube Region project. And that has been submitted to the second priority, as Gustav has shown you, to the sub-priority 3, improving water and sediment quality. And sometimes it is hard that you have these very well-defined project objectives and you have an idea, and to find the matching sub-priority can be challenging. Therefore, I very much recommend you to consult the JS, if possible, in advance at the beginning of the development of your project, because we also had numerous encounters with Gustav and in other projects his colleagues, and it really can be very helpful to set you on the right track, because it can be very problematic if you start working on one track and it turns out after months that what you had in mind, or what your consortium has in mind, that is not perfectly matching the priority, and then you are in trouble, because you have to reformulate a lot of activities or plans, or maybe it turns out that you have to modify your partnership, so a lot of your work can go to waste. So I very much recommend to consult at the beginning. They have a lot of information workshops and a lot of possibilities to have talks with the project officers, and it is very useful. The follow-up project of the Tidy Up is targeting the reduction of plastic waste within the Danube region, and it is matched to the water quality sub-priority of priority 2 within the DRP call. And here we had the challenge of very well defining that this is a quality improvement project and not a waste collection project, because the border is quite thin between the two. But it's very easy to go in the wrong direction here. After you have defined the project objective, you also have to define sub-priorities of your project that will be the leading objectives of your specific objectives. But since Gustav is really the master in this, and I wouldn't want to go more into detail, so let me carry on with the partnership, because that is also very important, as Gustav has described. Here is the famous map of the program, and I just would like to highlight some of the challenges that we have encountered during the development of the partnerships when we develop transnational projects. Adding to what formerly has been said, you may encounter challenges with approaching high-level authorities. They are of key importance when you develop transnational projects, because they are the ones who are setting policy objectives, who are relevant in national legislations, etc., etc. But usually, if you have a new idea or new partnership, it can be challenging to win them as project partners at the beginning, for sure. But you mustn't give up, because they are really of key importance. You must also count with that they have very long decision-making procedures, so it is also very timely, even if they say that they are willing to participate in a partnership or to be associated partners to a partnership, which can also be very, very useful and important. Still, it will take a lot of time until they sign the respective documents, and before they start actively participating in the project development. Also, you must be aware that the inclusion of non-EU countries can be very difficult, especially in the Ukraine right now, because of the given circumstances. Right now, there is a new regulation issued, a national legislation, that self-governments are not allowed to participate in, it's not said that they cannot participate in international or transnational projects, but all the funds that they will receive that finance the planned activities, it will be taken from their finances, so they practically are not capable of implementing their activities. The program authorities are aware of this situation, but you also must know this as if you are working actively on project developments, it's very hard, the financial status of the Ukraine partners. Also, the non-EU countries that are encouraged to be included in the program, we have experienced some difficulties with approaching Bosnian partners, because also there you must be aware of some internal political difficulties between the different parts of Bosnia. They do not get the same level of support depending on which part of Bosnia they are located in, and the administration is a bit well, not 100% supporting to all partners. And some of the potential partner candidates are aware of that, but some not, and you should know it in advance. Also, you can meet the difficulty that you approach a partner that you think that thematically would fit in your partnership, and maybe they even would say that they have experience, but you must test this somehow, because it can happen that they would say that they are very experienced in a certain topic, but maybe they are very much unexperienced in the implementation of international projects, which is not an impossible position, but then you must be aware of some future difficulties that you will have to overcome. So, regarding the budget, when you plan the budget of a big transnational project, then first you have to check the allocated amounts that are dedicated for a certain priority. As Gustav has shown, after the first call of the project, the Danube region program, some of the priorities or sub-priorities have been already closed, so they are not open right now, currently in the second call. That can be because the allocated budget for a given priority is already taken up by the projects from the previous call. The allocated amounts related to each priority, you can consult. It's uploaded, the program itself is uploaded also on the program's website, and it's very nice. It has everything in detail, the allocated amounts to actually to each sub-priority. Only here, since it's already the second and later in the third call, you will have to be aware that maybe you see a certain amount allocated to a priority, but if there have been many projects who already won in that priority, then that amount can be taken, or maybe it's almost maxed out, so there is not a lot of room for many projects. Of course, it depends on the program. They always have, or it depends on their regulations if they have room for reallocations. But if you see that the finances could be scarce, then also you shall consult the JS in advance to see if you have the chance to submit a project to a certain call and a certain priority. Okay, if you are not just approached to be a partner in a Danube region project, but you are aspiring a lead partnership role, then you must be aware of the whole project budget. So not only your partner budget, but the division of the budget amounts between the partners. This is also always a long negotiation process between the partners. Here you have to be aware to have more or less balanced amounts between the countries. It doesn't mean that you have to divide the planned budget equally, because it should come from bottom up and not from top down. But it can be a negative. You can receive a negative evaluation if, for example, one of the countries, the participating countries, if the allocated budget to a certain country is very much imbalanced, because that would hinder the transnational scope of the call. Also, the ratio between the management costs and the thematic, the professional costs allocated for staff, and also if there are some external services planned within the budget, it must be kept, the management costs must be kept as low as possible. In the former call, well, we assumed to have the management costs below 15%, which is actually quite hard because there's a lot of administrative and coordination tasks for all the partners, but especially for the lead partners. But you must be aware of this. And I don't know if this has been corrected since the first call, but we have to submit this ratio in the description of the project partners. There wasn't a given cell in GEMS to indicate this, but it was a request from the JS that we have to indicate it in the application form. Also, when approaching partners from other countries, and also to be aware of your possibilities, there are also the national co-financing rates that you must be aware of, and that can mean a lot in financing your activities, because added to that 80% that you receive from the program, you can also receive some following finances from the participating countries. And also regarding the payment procedures, you have to be aware that you require quite a lot of liquidity, because you have to pre-finance your activities for over half a year. That is an important issue. Okay. There is a question in the application form whether you recover the VAT or you don't. That means that your budget is accounted in the net amount, or the total, so the brut amount, meaning that it also well, it includes the VAT. That means like 1/3 of difference, especially for in the budget for the Hungarian partners. So it's an important decision to make if you are in the position to decide, and also to be aware of this if your organization is going with this or that monetary set. Okay, regarding the staff costs, you can go with flat rate, and that is an easier way of administering your staff costs allocated. But you also must be aware that especially for the accession countries and the Ukraine, they are not always aware of the concept of flat rate staff costs. So you might have difficulties, or these partners might have difficulties with accepting their costs in this section. And also, if you go with the flat rate on staff costs, then you can receive the question that why did that partner apply if they are only active in 20% of their whole budget, and the rest is given to external experts. Okay, regarding the procurement, you must be aware that it takes a lot of time, so just plan in advance. The national co-financing I have already talked about. I will try to speed up a bit because we are a bit over time. Regarding the activity descriptions, What I would like to highlight here is that what we see in during the development of projects and sometimes during the evaluation of transnational cross-border projects is that a lot of applicants use AI during the development of project proposal. Be alert and use it in good faith, and try to focus on. It can be useful during project development because it resumes your maybe not so straight thoughts very well. But just by making the AI writing your activities, that will not help you, and the project assessors can identify very easily and very quickly that you are using AI, and you can very easily get lost. It's very easy to max out the given sections, but it's very easy to lose focus and to lose the quantifiable aspects of your activities. So it's very important that later on, after 1 or 1.5 years, when your project wins and you're very happy, then these activities will be the baseline of the implementation of your project. And it also helps you to have quantifiable descriptions. So who will do what, where, how many participants, what is, how many assessments you will do, and so on and so on. So AI can help you, but it can also take you away from your scope. The project management structure. Please try to set the project management structure in advance when you develop the project. So set activity responsibles, set the specific objective responsibles, because these partners will be reliable, and they will be responsible for these activities and these specific objectives, for instance, and you will be able to rely on them during implementation. It's necessary to have a partner or a working group or a set of partners who are responsible for certain activities, who have very clear mindset on what they want to complete, what they want to accomplish during the implementation, how to set internal deadlines, and but at the beginning, how to define the budget on all the activities that they plan to implement. Also, it's very important to identify the quality management and the communication management, because that needs to be given in the project at the beginning of implementation. And also, it's very useful and very important task during implementation. Okay, when you are developing a transnational project, then you need to have a coordinator who channels all the information between the consortium, and also has a close communication with the JS as much as it is possible. And also you have to have groups or people who are responsible for activity writing, and you must know your team, so who is capable of what best. When designing your budget, you must be reasonable, and you must have already all the activity descriptions to be able to set a reasonable budget that covers all the planned activities. And you also require assistants who are responsible for the development of documents, their signature, and also to upload all the information, the application form in GEMS. And then almost last, the quality. I cannot highlight the importance of consultancy with the managing authority, so the JS, and also you are given the assessment grid within the program, and there you have the weight of each quality aspect. Be aware and try to design your project and in a way that you also ask these questions from yourself throughout the development of the project, to have a better proposal. Okay, and then that was it from my side. I tried to speed up at the end, sorry.
Thank you very much, Pruzina, for this professionally engaging and interesting presentation. I think, and I really believe that advice on professional grant writing, can you hear me? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, on professional grant writing is always more than welcome for early to mid-career researchers and anyone who is interested to prepare such international proposals. So it was really highly useful. Now I would like to give the floor to our next speaker, who will be Attila David Molnár, who is the chairman of the PET Cup Society. And he's a biologist and a filmmaker. We know each other for a long time. And more importantly, in the context of our event, he is the leader of a successful Interreg project entitled Tidy Up, and also the leader of a new one that won't be mentioned so much today. But the aim of his speech will be to present a little bit in detail and share with us his personal experience of the Tidy Up project and its major outcomes. So Attila, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk here about the key findings and outputs of Tidy Up. And here I would like to inspire others that are busy with improving water quality and reducing transnational pollution to take part in a transnational or in a Danube region program. Going back to the Tidy Up, it was not an accident that we as a society dealing with transnational river pollution won. Why am I saying that? The reason is that basically in Central Europe, in the Carpathian Basin, unfortunately, we have a long tradition of pollution events. And here, I'm not only thinking about plastic, but all other kinds of pollution, like this international, transnational pollution of the Slana River, very recently, polluting the river, also the river Tisa for months, but I can speak about the red mud sludge or the great cyanide catastrophe from the year 2000. Okay, so what we did was basically inviting countries from Austria all the way down along the Danube to Bulgaria to join the project, in which we try to adapt and transfer our knowledge developed in the Tisa River Basin to a wider level. Okay, so basically we were doing river cleanups and dealing with transnational river in litter pollution. That means that we have a knowledge, general knowledge of the source of the pollution, which are basically coastal hotspots, we can say, or leakage zones, that from time to time are mobilized by the river. And then you have a phenomena called as the plastic flood. It's a general term used by water engineering experts to describe this site. The problem with this pollution is not only aesthetical, but it has a deteriorating effect on tourism, on water quality, and as you can see on this image, on the safety of production of the renewable water energy. This picture was taken at Kiskere, at the middle Tisa Valley, but this is not unique in the Danube region. You can see many other accumulations like this. So what we were aware that this riverine litter has a direct link to marine litter. So our job is not in vain, even if we do a river cleanup. So that's what we did for years. Plastic Cup Society was famous of doing nothing else, basically, but only river cleanups. Okay, so this was the beginning of our pre-project status, if you like. So this was our reference when we applied. Yeah, we were well known, we were internationally recognized, okay, but basically these were trash boats and we were cleaning rivers. What happened during the project and what happened afterwards? Well, I can say that all activities were multiplied, and we took to a perfectly new level because we were able to diversify our activities according to 3 specific objectives, very clearly outlined even in the application phase of the project. In the following few minutes, I will quickly go through of these specific objectives. The first one is citizen science and research. What we basically did was we didn't want to find out nothing new. What we did was a comparison of existing microplastic measurement methods, and we do it very thorough. And we did it in different scenarios, in different hydromorphological conditions, and the end result was a report on the adaptability of these methods. But from microplastic, we also turned attention to macroplastic, because that is, we can say, a predecessor, of course, of microplastic, but also a major health hazard and an environmental issue. So what we did was we used an open access smartphone application, and we built a database, a river pollution map, if you like, or reference, or what we could show to the committee during the application process was basically the Tisza River, the main riverbed. We had data on the biggest accumulations, but thanks to this Danube Transnational Program and the TIDIA project, we could multiply the length of the represented river sections by 5, and that was a great achievement, and we could invite partners to help us to do the monitoring activity with their smartphones. And in the spirit of open science, the end result is an absolutely open access database that anyone can use and download. We also do our parts to communicate our results on different academic platforms, on conferences, in lectures, in open access papers. And the biggest promise of this project, I think, is that we slowly but surely moved away from in-field and in-situ observation to remote sensing, and absolutely a new field opened up. So we are able basically to monitor and follow plastic pollution from space, which is a big breakthrough. Going to the SO2, so the second specific objective, we summarize the options that countries have when they try to deal with riverine pollution. And from the very simplest ideas, when you block the plastic flood with a boat, to the most elaborate and more environmental friendly interventions in the upstream areas, to the very low energy and very cost-effective methods of using the renewable energy of the river to clean up the plastic. We summarized these methods, and we gave a comprehensive overlook of these, including the community river cleanups. It's very important because it's not just for professionals to clean up rivers. The communities, according to our experience, can do at least as much. Their overall impact on the environment is very significant. So what we did is we multiplied and transferred our knowledge base to other countries, and these cleanups were very successful. And I'm very happy to welcome many of these people on this picture among the participants of this Zoom meet today. Thank you for joining us today. Of course, selection of the riverine litter is a part of our efforts, because we do not think that riverine litter should directly move from the water to the landfill. So we just elaborated a very delicate methodology for recycling, reusing riverine litter. And at this moment, we handle more than 14 different streams of waste. In general, we exceeded 300 tons of collected riverine litter during this project. Not only this project, but with this project, we could achieve that, and we could increase the rate of recyclability to 60%. Within TidyUp, a new concept was also appearing, because as you will hear from the communication and awareness raising efforts, we try to do something special from riverine litter. So we developed a concept which means that riverine litter can not only be recycled, but we can also make products out of them that are related to the river and can be used in tourism, in shipping and fishing and close to shore activities such as recreation. So we came up with the concept of river saver products, which are basically water-related products that are made of riverine litter, and these things were developed into a new set of items that are very recently seen the public in the form of a web shop named riversaver.eu. We used academic partners, corporate partners to help us in developing new products, and it was a great fun. What about communication, SO3? What we did was we trained all our partners at the very beginning how to produce their own videos. I would lie if I would say that it was a complete success. No, some of our partners were very keen on learning new things and started to produce their own videos. Some of the partners were reluctant and didn't do such a thing. But in the end, we could produce quite a long list of educational videos, project videos, inspirational videos, which were a great help when communicating the results of our project. Of course, for stakeholders and decision makers, we had to use another form of communication but videos, okay? And for that reason, we turned to a format when you have a leaflet, a booklet, a serious report that professionals can use. So during roundtable discussions, we identify the partners and target groups that we specifically want to communicate. And then what we did is we built up an exhibition area from mostly waste and recycled materials. And we started to take a tour. This was very important to reach communities and riverside partners and, as I said, stakeholders. So this floating exhibition moved from city, sometimes on the road for financial reasons, sometimes on water, mostly on water, I have to say, because after the COVID, it became so much expensive to move this boat around. But anyway, it reached all project partner countries, excluding Austria, where luckily water pollution is not that big issue in terms of plastic. And we could identify the target groups we want to communicate. And we were able to open up the very small river saver concept that was directed to train our volunteers to a new level. We turned it into a book called The Aquatic Plastic, where all parties can learn more about community river cleanups and can take a real tour before they take action. And it's very important that we do not give insight only in how to pollute, how to how to monitor the pollution. We also give specific hints, tips on how to deal with the pollution. And it is very important because just as application writing, this thing also has a lot of tricks that you have to learn, and it's better if you don't learn it by your failures. So basically, this was a very important output of Tidy Up, the book, but we have many other things that we produced. Please, you are more than welcome to visit our website or download the book, watch the project documentary, or check our references for literature that we used and cross references. Before I give back the microphone, just let me say a big thanks to our associated partners and also to our partners that were held together by Ex-Ante and by Frugi and her team. We are very grateful for them, and also for the local joint secretary. We are very happy that we could do it, and I'm also very proud to announce that we are continuing the very good work under the name of Aquatic Plastic, which will concentrate more to professional river cleanups. Thank you very much for the attention.
Thank you very much, Attila, for your highly motivational and enthusiastic speech, which really nicely illustrated the potential of these projects, and hats off for all the work you've done for monitoring plastic pollution in the Danube region, and also about how to deal with with these microplastics and the polluted material that you have removed from the river basin. Thank you also for helping me to organize this event, and then of course congratulations for your second Interreg project, and wishing you all the best for the continuation of this nice work. Last but not least, let's switch to our last lecture, to be delivered by Tímea Kis from the University of Szeged, and she will present data of her research group about microplastic pollution in the Danube River Basin. Tímea's presentation will clearly show the potential of scientific outcomes of such regional collaborations. Tímea, the floor is yours.
Okay, hello, thank you very much. I hope you see it. So we started our monitoring of microplastics 5 years ago with a group of students. And the idea came that there are increasing number of studies. So we started our work in 2019. At that time, there were not so many works, but ever since, you see, the number of publications has increased. What is interesting is not just about microplastics and oceans, but also microplastics and rivers. But what is interesting for us, that if I search for a word, fluvial, which also means river, the number of publications is much smaller. And the fluvial means that this word is used by hydrologists, geomorphologists, so all who consider the environmental conditions of the microplastic monitoring. So therefore, I think it is very important also within the new researches to reveal the environmental driving factors of microplastics and also macroplastic pollution. So it's a question that what to sample. Do we want to sample water, or do we want to sample the sediments? We will see that what the type of the sediment is also important. It is also important where to sample. It is not just enough to go down in one point, because it should be a representative point from a hydrological and geomorphological point of view. And it is also a question, should we do a monitoring on a point or along a cross-section of the river? We will see that it is also important when to do the sampling, when to do the monitoring. Should we perform it at low stage, or should we perform it at flood stage? They would provide totally different numbers. And then the repetition is also a question. Should we repeat the measurements spatially? So from, let's say, from the source of the Tisza to the Danubian confluence, or should we repeat it temporally, so go back time by time to the same point? And these questions are very crucial in microplastic monitoring, I think, and most of them are neglected. So just to have an idea of what we do is that we do measurements from the source to the end of the Tisza. We collect sediments at 70 sites and water at 34 sites. And we repeat these measurements since 2019 in every year. And in one point, we do repetition of water sampling, just water, in every 5 days at this location at Minsen. So based on this experience, we have some idea that what should be considered during future monitoring. First and most important is the hydrological situation. Here you can see the data of our 2 years long study. The blue line shows the hydrology of the river, the water stage. So these are the floods, small floods. The white parts are the low stages. And it also shows that how the suspended sediment changes. It will be later on a very important parameter. And these columns shows the amount of microplastic in the water. So here we collected samples from the water from a ferry across the river of the Tisa. So what you can see here that during flood waves, there are extremely high amount of microplastics and also surface suspended sediments, but at low stages, they are much lower because most of the plastics are deposited in the channel with the clay, with the sand, and with all the sediments. So therefore, it is important to decide what to do, to measure at low stages or to do at measurements at flood stages, because we will get totally different numbers. And it doesn't mean that the river is extremely polluted, just we did the measurement at flood waves. Besides, we have an expression like even sequence. So here you can see there is a sequence of floods. And as you can see, the first flood, especially the very first flood, transported much more microplastic. And later on, even if the floods became bigger, higher, the amount of microplastics was not increasing despite they decreased. So therefore, it's also important that which flood we select, the first one or a later flood. So therefore, I think when someone would like to consider their monitoring, it is advised to sample at the similar hydrological situation. The best would be at the first flood peak. Second, I think the material of the sampled sediment is also important. Here you can see a site. Here we have gravel, some sand, and clay. What should we sample? It is one site, but where should we collect the samples from? And here, what you can see that here is the grain size, and here's the amount of microplastics along the Tisa in 2020, I think. And from each point, we collected fine-grained and coarse-grained sediments. And what you can see here that the coarse grain, the sandy sediment, has much larger range. And it depends on also the grain size. So therefore, now I think we suggest to use fine-grained sediments because fine-grained sediments are more independent of flow conditions, more independent of local flow conditions. So they should reflect not the local conditions, but rather the general microplastic pollution of the river. Another important thing is the depth of the sampling. Here you can see our results in the water column. This is the cross-section of the river. And here is the velocity profile. The pinkish show higher flow velocity. These are the lower flow velocity. So you can see that here we had higher flow velocities in October. And look at those very slight changes had increased the number of microplastics. But not just that is important, but also that the most microplastics were traveled almost on the surface of the water. So you can see at 10 centimeter depth and then 50 centimeter depth. And then because they are light, just like the plastic bottles, they are traveling on the surface of the water, also the microplastics. So therefore, it's very important that what should be the depth. And this depth should be the same when we do sampling along a river. The depth of sampling, if we do sample sediments, is also important. I really like, we do these measurements in this site for almost 20 years now. So we know that along this band, how much sediment is deposited during one flood. And you can see that there are lots of sediment and then decreasing, here is the flow direction. So as the flow enters to the floodplain, most sediments are deposited here and then less and less. And that will also influence that at what depth will be the measurement limit of the microplastics. Look at the the red one shows that here the lowest microplastics were found at 45 centimeters. Of course, because here lots of sediment is deposited, so there are thicker sedimentation since the plastics appeared in waters. And then the orange one, it just appears in 10 centimeters, and here it is less than 5 centimeters. So therefore, I think if someone do a monitoring, I suggest to do sampling of superficial sediments which were deposited by the same event. That's also very important. Okay, another point is that the sampling site is important and the sampled floodplain form. Here we are at the same site. I'm sorry, maybe it's too heavy loaded with figures, but here there is a river and there is a so-called natural levee. When the flood enters to the floodplain, it deposits lots of sand, and you can see that within this area, within this form on the surface, the microplastic content varies between 0 to 620 items per kilogram. Here we collected some sediments from a clay pit. Here it's much higher, or sediments from the point bar. So you can see that the different forms, the natural levee, the point bars, the deep areas between the point bars and the clay pit contain totally different amount of microplastics. So when we do comparison between sites, it is advised to sample the same geomorphological forms, the same geomorphological situation. And now if we do sampling from the channel, even from the channel, there are different forms. So for example, by nice bends, we have the so-called point bars. Along straight sections, there is also some deposition called sidebars, and we can find these clayey sediment sheets deposited on the bank lines. And you can see that we did an analysis that show, so this is the columns show that the different colors that the upper Tisa, middle Tisa, and lower Tisa, so the longitudinal changes on a given form. So if we consider point bars, the highest microplastic content was measured in the middle Tisa, similarly to the sidebars. But as soon as we studied just sediment sheets, you can see that the peak was in a different location. So therefore, it is advised to sample the same form when we are coming from the source to the confluence. And this also has to be kept in mind that this form has to appear everywhere. So look at, the problem is that point bars are just in the middle part, but sidebars are everywhere, even in the close to the Rakiv. So therefore, for example, here along the Tisa, we suggest to use sidebars for monitoring. Okay, we found our sidebar. It doesn't, this is actually a point bar. And then the question, in which point should we do the measurements? And therefore we did a measurement to figure out that, is it the same? Is the microplastic content is the same all along? And look at, the black one shows the highest content, microplastic content, and then it decreasing as we get to the white one. And look at, almost at every point there is a different microplastic pattern. So therefore, therefore it is suggested to sample not just the same form, but the same form at the same point, because there the flow conditions are the same. Another point, and it is related to the tidy up project that you mentioned before. The first example, here you can see that the Tisa and the Maros join at Szeged, and for example, the tidy up project did the measurements of microplastics at this point. And was it correct or not to do measurements downstream of tributaries? because here you can see the mixing patterns of the waters. The green one is the Tisza water. So when we see green, it means that there the Tisza water dominated. The red is where the Maros water dominated in some situations, and the yellow is when they are mixed. We can use satellite images to analyze this. So you can see, you can imagine, and all of them are typical in different hydrological conditions. So we can say that, okay, this situation is when the Tisza has higher stage than the Maros and so on, or this is when the Maros has higher discharge or colder water than the Tisza. So therefore, if I do plastic sampling here at the end, you can see that sometimes it is good because I can do a sampling of the mixed water, but sometimes I just do sampling of the Tisza, sometimes I do sampling of the Maros water, especially if I just do sampling on one point instead of a cross-section. So therefore, downstream of confluences, I think it is advised to do the sampling further downstream where the mixing is complete, and or consider the hydrology and these mixing pattern when you plan the sampling downstream of confluences. The tributaries are also a tricky question because they definitely influence the pollution. Look at the last 3 years. This was the mean sediment pollution of the Tisza, and this was the tributaries. And look at, usually the tributaries has higher, but in 2020, it has much higher than the Tisza. So they were efficient conveyors of microplastics. But like in 2020, you could see that the Krasna was very polluted. Still, it did not really influence the Tisza downstream of Vásárosnamény. Here it was, the Krasna was also polluted and slightly increased the pollution. Here, the Sajó-Hernát system, they were very polluted in 2020, and they effectively influenced the Tisza. In other cases, they did not really. So here, the tributaries must be considered as conveyors. They are very important sources of microplastics, but whether they influence the Tisza or not, it depends on their discharge. So, but they must be considered. Again, dams and reservoirs are all along the Tisza. So we have these 3 dams and the reservoirs behind. What is different between them is that the Tiszalök and Novi Pecsei reservoirs are impounding just in the channel. And in the Kisköre, it is impounded also on the floodplain. And so there is a lake. And look at, it influences these deposited microplastics, because in Tiszalök, along the impounded section, the amount of microplastics decreasing. Here it is decreasing because time to time the dam is opened, and then there is a flux movement, mobilization of the microplastics. But in the Kisköre reservoir, on the lake shoreline, there is no mobilization. So as we are getting into the lake section, you can see that the amount of microplastics are increasing because there is no mobilization from the channel. So, for example, the impoundment also must be considered when somebody plans a monitoring. And just to show our latest results, so we did sediment sampling 2019, 20, 21, 22. The 23 results are not yet ready. And these are from sediments. And you could see that in the sediments, the first year, 2019, was the most polluted, and then it decreased, and 2020 slightly increased. The gray shows the tributaries. So you can see, for example, here the Körös, here is the Maros. So they are really effectively influence the areas. But there are some points where almost no microplastic is deposited. In some places the situation is getting better, then it is getting worse. So there are many different kind of patterns, because it is the flood waves mobilize the sediments, and with the sediments they mobilize the plastic. And if we see the water samples, we have less measurement point, but for me this 2023 measurement was shocking. So you can see that in the water the amount of plastics has increased extremely last year. Previously it had the same pattern as in the sediment, and especially some of the tributaries, for example the Samos, or here the Sajó-Hernad system is extremely polluted. So what I would like to suggest with this, that if you do measurement just once, or in just one point, just select one point, for example this one, is definitely not typical for the whole system. So if you just select limited number of points, then you will get a false picture on the pollution history. So the take-home message for the measurements monitors, that a single measurement is not enough because of the redistribution by floods. And finally, I would like to show our latest attempt to predict or model microplastics, because we could use satellite images and the suspended sediment as a proxy for that. Because here you can see that what is the amount of suspended sediment concentration. Here is the microplastic concentration. And there is almost no connection between them during low stages. But during flood waves, and especially during the rising and peak of the floods, there is a close relationship between the suspended sediment and the microplastics. So they could be used to model and to predict the amount of microplastics. So therefore, we suggest to use satellite images of flood waves to have an idea on microplastic pollution. So here what you can see, that here is the yellow line shows the measured amount of measured microplastics. Here the blue is the measured suspended sediment concentration, I'm sorry, and the others are different satellites. And what he suggests is to use this Sentinel-2 satellite, because look at the using the Sentinel-2, the estimation for microplastic concentration is pretty much as what we have measured. During floods, it can there could be some errors, but in some phases of the floods, they would work well. And even here, you can see that we could make maps. Where are the microplastics in the water? And you can, first of all, here you can see that they are traveling in waves. So that's also an important approach and result. And thank you very much for your attention. And here is our team. So they could help you if you want to get some more information on sampling, modeling, and our future projects. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tina, for this interesting scientific talk and for sharing with us the latest scientific results of your research team. I really enjoyed your important methodological insights into the sampling of microplastics, and I think it's really important, highly important topic to be addressed this way systematically and scientifically, especially if we want to collect and compare data from various countries and rivers. So it was really interesting and a nice presentation. So now let's start
Thank
our Q&A session. I haven't seen any comments or questions yet in the chat. Maybe I just missed them, but now everybody is free to ask some questions. So you can unmute yourself, turn on your camera, and then ask the questions. As I do not see any questions, so I have to. So for a warm up, maybe I would also ask a first question, which is directed to Gustav Csomor. It will be about the associate strategic partners in the Interreg program, because maybe I just did not follow it properly, and I have to admit that I don't know very much in detail the proposal. But who can be associate strategic partners in the Interreg program, and how can they be financed? So what are the circumstances or the for this partnership?
Well, as I briefly tried to explain, the project partnership consists mainly of those partners who have their own budget, and then they are involved in a daily implementation of the projects, and in most activities or all activities they are involved. The associated strategic partners, to have associated strategic partners, it's a sort of tool to bring on the stakeholders, relevant stakeholders who can be relevant for the project implementation. An example I mentioned, if a project intends to influence a certain policy field, maybe then a ministry or other actor can be relevant to be around, have a closer link to the project. And this means that so they are kind of following what the project is doing, and they can, so through their financing, these actors can take part in project events mainly, and share their viewpoints, share their knowledge, or just be there and then following the development of the project. Then they hopefully will have a sort of ownership regarding the project products, and which might ease the uptake of these, I don't know, be it a strategy or a certain tool by operational actors. And this travel and accommodation costs are to be financed by one of those project partners who have budget within their project. From territorial point of view, there is a bit of difference compared to the financing partners. As I mentioned, project partners can come only from within the program area. Actually, there are some exceptions in case of Ukraine and Germany, which are only part of the countries involved in the program area. In case of Ukraine, if partners are located in other parts of outside of those 4 counties that are part of the Danube region, but have some relevance in the project context, territorial, be it a ministry located in Kiev or whatever, and somehow that stands also for Germany. If there is a federal whatever authority that has relevance in the target area, then they can also be on board. While in case of the ASPs, actors can come from any EU country, so even from Portugal or from Sweden, if of course relevant for the project partnership or project implementation and the topic. But from non-EU side, only the program area, so those 5 countries which are part of the program area can come. And yeah, so the financial aspect I verified, and then hopefully this way it's clear what the purpose and what the reason can be to involve such a this can also relate to, I don't know, an international organization, which usually, again, not necessarily active in a project implementation, but their network, their knowledge background, and so on, as a potential to disseminate project results can be relevant. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Gustav, for your answer. In between, we have a question in the chat. I don't know if Edith would like to ask it, or shall I read it out loud? So, yeah, then the question was for Timea Kish about how they measured the microplastics and whether they counted the items in a given amount of water sample. So then maybe, Timea, you could answer the question.
Yeah, I think it's very important to pump water with a known volume. So we always pumped 1 cubic meter, because sometimes we had 10 items, sometimes we had 100 items. So I think at least 1 cubic meters of water must be pumped. And to do this pumping, it is at least half an hour or more. So also the time frames must be considered. So we did the pumping from shallow depth of the water, sometimes from a ferry, where it was possible, sometimes from the shoreline. And then all the water was sieved through a 90 micrometer sieve to be sure that we catch some of the microplastics. Of course, there are smaller ones, but we could not carry 1 cubic meter water home. We had to extract somehow some sediments. So therefore, we use the sieve system and a pump.
Thank you very much for your answer. And yeah, I have a second question until we are waiting for further questions from the audience. So it's a general one about one of the issues that is mostly important and relevant, I mean, from the human perspective. So did you measure, or do you have any access to data, or have you summarized, or have you reviewed data about the potential human health hazard effects of this microplastic pollution, which is, as it seems, quite present in our rivers? I don't know who can answer this question or who has any comments on this. If you have.
I think these microplastics has many different aspects. There is the chemistry, there is a biology, human biology, fish biology, sedimentology. So there are many different aspects. So therefore, I think it's very important to have a group of scientists who could do the research together. And this is what I would like to suggest, because until now, many of the measurements were made by biologists or by chemists, but I think they should combine their work. Because, for example, even if you say that the question was that the potential health hazard effect in fish, but then it must be the question that what kind of fish do we study? Is it carnivore or omnivore, or what kind of fish? Where does that fish live? Downstream of tributaries, upstream, I don't know, at the bottom and the surface. So I think all these environmental conditions should be considered when somebody would like to study this. So I'd really suggest to have a nice group of researchers.
Thank you very much, Timea. And there is one more question from Imelda Somodi, if you could. Yeah.
Thank you for providing the opportunity for this. I would like to have a question to Gustav Csomor regarding the consortium structure of the proposals, and it is related to the involvement of non-EU countries. How deep or how numerous involvement is expected? So if we involve one non-EU country, is it sufficient, or we should think along involving more than one country?
Well, this depends also on the territorial scope of the project, especially in the environmental related thematic fields. Usually projects expected to have a proper focus, be it maybe the whole Danube region basin. Then of course, in that case, partners from possibly all those non-EU countries are expected. But if the project scope is limited to the Tisza River basin, then of course Bosnian partners are not relevant and not expected, but more the Serbian and Ukrainian participation is relevant to reasonably tackle that the specific challenge of the Tisza River basin. I would say normally it's not that much. Again, a clear, concrete advice on this I cannot give. It depends very much, again, on the geographical scope as well as so proportionally involve, considering the territory as well as the partnership and the project topic.
Thank you. Yeah, maybe we will more specifically ask that later. Another question which emerged during this webinar specifically is that I think one of the consultant presenter said that the flat rate approach to staff costs is not probably the most advisable. I'm asking this because many of the potential consortium partners are afraid of the administrative load by an Interreg project, and I see a tendency to potentially opt towards flat rates. Should we discourage this, or what is the opinion in this aspect?
Gustav, will you answer, and then
maybe this is a question to both you and Mr. Chamor.
Yeah. So in the budget structure, there are different options for flat rate. Specifically in connection to the staff cost, the maximum is 20%, meaning that the 20% of the total other real cost basis, be it the travel costs or I don't know, the external expertise. So this means that considering a partner whose contribution is expected to come more from their own staff, from their own knowledge, that's the only knowledge base, and usually that's what normally we expect, that a partner is present in a project partnership because they have the knowledge, they have the competency, territorial, thematic. So this means that the activities carried out would supposed to have staff intensivity rather than having external experts on board. And then, but then if in such case, when the external expertise costs are relatively low, and then only 20% of that can be considered as a flat rate staff, then that might be problematic to cover all, let's say, invested efforts of the organization to cover that by related. Of course, the positive side is that then in case of flat rate, there is not no administrative burden at all. That is the situation, but that shall be considered. And the other thing is concerning the regarding whichever flat rate to consider, is that this is paid automatically based on the cost reported. So especially if there is a project whose, let's say, external expertise or equipment costs comes in a later project implementation stage, until that, basically, there is also no reimbursement flat rate on staff, since there is nothing to calculate that 20% on, which might also cause difficulties on the implementation level.
Thank you.
Yes, maybe just one short extension based on our experiences is that we have what we encountered during the implementation of the TIDIA project that Attila introduced is that, for example, at the Ukrainian partners, the FSC, so the National Control Office, they weren't familiar with the concept of flat rate. I hope that this will improve with the current call, and especially for the second call if you submit a proposal right now. But they requested the pay slips and all the contracts and everything, although the partner was on flat rate, which they are not supposed to. So this is just our experience, and hopefully it will be better with time. But also, for example, now with the Bosnian partners, we also encouraged, not encourage them, but we explained them the pros and cons of the flat rate. And they said that for them, even though it's more administration, but it's clearer to have real costs on for the staff expenditures than to use the flat rate, although it's much more simple. But the financial controllers, they can handle the old-fashioned way better. That's our experience.
Okay, thank you. Well, yeah, it's a difficult decision, but I gathered now a bit more aspects to consider, and thank you for your input.
Thank you very much. I don't see any more questions, so then I would like to ask the speakers whether they would like to make some closing remarks, or whether they would like to share with us some further comments or take-home messages. Not sure if there is any comment from the speakers, but just in case they would like to share something with us. There was a question in the chat about whether the slides of the presentations could be made available after the event. Of course, the video recording will be available, but yeah, you may answer this question also in the chat. So hoping then, if are there any comments from the speakers? No, then hoping that all of you found our discussion and the event useful and interesting, I would like to close the event by thanking again the speakers for taking their time to be with us today, and the technical staff of the Hungarian Academy of Sciences for the Zoom and IT support of the event. And I hope you all have enjoyed it and gathered some interesting takeaway messages, and maybe we'll consider applying for an Interreg Danube region program in the future. Have a nice afternoon. Goodbye.